Conquerors have marched into the city of Kufa for centuries, fully convinced they are taking territory. They draw maps, build walls, and stake their flags in the soil. But they are completely blind to the reality beneath their boots. Kufa is an elaborate, dormant cosmic trap, built to draw in human arrogance before snapping shut. Ali, the commander of the faithful, pointed across the flats toward ancient Al-Hira, describing a future urban expansion that defies all modern logic. This map shows Kufa and Al-Hira swelling outward. Ali prophesied this land becomes so densely packed that dirt sells for gold. As limits merge, the original mosque becomes cramped, so a massive 500-door megastructure appears to accommodate the growing masses. The physical boundaries of the city we see today are an illusion. Kufa is a staging ground, quietly waiting for a violent, apocalyptic spark to activate its final borders and fulfill its intended purpose. Moving from the city limits to its absolute center, the mechanism of the trap is hidden in the very materials of the city. Ali issued a severe condemnation of the tyrants who rebuilt the Great Mosque using baked bricks, an active desecration of the sacred ground. The crime was architectural. By tearing down the original pottery and clay walls, the builders deliberately skewed the sanctuary's orientation, destroying what Ali referred to as the Qibla of Noah, the true, original direction of prayer laid down at the dawn of human history. This schematic illustrates the specific violation. You can see the overlapping footprints, the skewed alignment built by the tyrants in gray, and the true underlying alignment of Noah's original foundation in a distinct glow. Every stone currently standing in the sanctuary is a physical record of corruption. The architecture is generating an unbearable tension, a literal misalignment of the earth that demands a catastrophic purge to correct it. Driving pace. The event that finally triggers this purge originates in the West. A prophesied tyrant known as the Sufyani launches a brutal military campaign directly out of Damascus, deploying forces led by a fierce, evil-named youth. This tactical map tracks the Sufyani's initial strike vector. His eastern vanguard rips straight into Baghdad. The resulting slaughter is methodical, leaving 70,000 dead in the streets and specifically targeting 300 pregnant women in an act of total psychological terror. Then, the attack vector pivots directly south. The blood-soaked army zeroes in on Kufa, moving to lay an iron siege over the city's alleys and strongholds. The Sufyani marches into Kufa, consumed by his own momentum. He looks at his overwhelming military superiority and sees an easy conquest, unaware he is stepping directly onto a loaded string. Down in the dirt of the city streets, the violence loses all military logic. The narrations describe soldiers walking right past discarded wealth and abandoned weapons, ignoring the loot to chase down and execute a small child. Total desperation takes hold. The surviving residents scatter, throwing themselves against a single specific wall in the city that offers the only promised sliver of physical safety from the slaughter. Above the panic, the Great Mosque is suspended, completely devoid of prayer for 40 terrifying nights. In place of worship, the invading army's banners flutter wildly around the silent sanctuary. The invaders occupy Kufa at the peak of their arrogance. They sit in the heavy silence, fully believing they have broken the city, failing to realize that the earth beneath their feet is listening. The trap snaps. A divine call rings out across the region. At your service, O caller of Allah. It is a frequency the living cannot hear, but the dead recognize instantly. The packed earth of Kufa physically fractures open. Armies of the dead erupt from the soil, permeating the tight paths of the city, rising with their swords already resting on their shoulders, ready to strike. They rise with a singular objective: absolute vengeance. They sweep through the streets to strike the heads of the tyrants, eliminating the invaders of the present while settling the scores of the first and last oppressors of history. In contrast to this supernatural violence, the Mahdi arrives in Kufa not as a warlord, but as a meticulous distributor of justice, walking the freshly liberated streets. He implements a systematic economic restoration at the individual level. The Mahdi personally buys the freedom of every enslaved person. He clears every outstanding debt, returns all stolen property, and hand-delivers blood money to the grieving families of the victims. This is an exact inversion of the Sufyani's terror. Where the oppressor used an army to extract blood, the Mahdi uses his authority to provide freedom and street-level redemption for the survivors. With the human toll addressed, the Mahdi approaches the corrupted Great Mosque of Kufa. The baked brick walls are demolished. The Mahdi levels the structure and rebuilds it upon its original foundation, finally restoring the lost Qibla of Noah and realigning the architecture with divine law. With Kufa stabilized, the restoration moves outward. The Mahdi marches toward the coastal city of Basra, carrying the ancient ark and the staff of Moses. The apocalyptic judgment hits the water. Upon his command, the sea roars and rises, swallowing Basra completely until nothing remains except its highest mosque, jetting out like the breast of a ship. Kufa functions as a precisely calibrated mechanism, the specific site where human tyranny is drawn in, erased, and replaced by a permanent anchor of divine justice.